A Cambridge doctor says your 8-hour workday is neurologically impossible. Your brain only gets 90 good minutes. Think about yesterday. Not the whole day, just the hours you were supposedly working. Now find the stretch where you were actually sharp. Clean thinking. No refreshing. No staring at a document you've already read 3 times. How long was it? I'm guessing 2 hours. Maybe 3 on a good day. Hold on to that number. Because a Cambridge-trained physician named Mithu Storoni built an entire book around it. It's called Hyperefficient. It won Business Book of the Year. And its central claim is something you already suspect but have never been allowed to say out loud. You were never capable of 8 hours. Nobody is. The guilt you feel about that is not your fault. It's a manufacturing defect in the system that sold you the 8-hour lie. Part 1. The 3-hour ceiling. Neuroscience is clear on this. For genuinely demanding cognitive work, solving something new, not executing something familiar, the average adult gets under 3 hours a day. Not 3 if you try harder. 3 ceiling. So what happens in the other 5? Email, meetings, messages. Slide deck version 37. From the outside, it looks like relentless activity. On the inside, your brain checked out hours ago and muscle memory is driving. Here's the part that should make you angry. When your focus collapses at 3 in the afternoon, your first thought isn't "my brain has spent its budget." Your first thought is an accusation. Am I lazy? Undisciplined? Do I not want it enough? That reflex is the most expensive thing you own. And someone installed it. Low output equals low character. That's the false program running in the background. Part 2. The factory owner's logic. Where did 8 hours come from? Not biology. Machines. Industrial-era factory owners noticed equipment runs around the clock. Feed it coal and it never gets bored. Output scales linearly with hours. Beautiful. Then they applied the same math to the humans standing next to the machines. That math never got revised. It just got rebranded. School told you the harder it hurts, the higher you'll rise. Your workplace tells you someone out there is grinding while you rest. The self-improvement industry tells you discipline is freedom. Every one of those smuggles in the same lie. Efficiency equals duration. But you are not equipment. Your brain runs on a rhythm. Overriding it isn't grit. It's like running 10 heavy apps on a dying phone and calling yourself productive because the screen is still on. The battery doesn't care how committed you are. Part 3. Your brain is a gearbox, not a dial. Most people treat focus like a volume dial. Turn it up, get more. Storoni says your brain is a gearbox, driven by a tiny brainstem structure and a chemical called norepinephrine. Gear 1. Low arousal. Wandering, relaxed. The shower, a walk. Feels like nothing, but it's where original ideas appear and the mental slate wipes clean. Gear 2. Focus. Prefrontal cortex fully online. Attention narrows like a camera lens. Complex problems, deep learning. This is the gear that produces work that matters. Gear 3. High arousal. Racing, reactive. Good for a deadline in 40 minutes. Terrible for thinking. Nuance disappears. Your best work happens in Gear 2. And the modern workday, no breaks, constant switching, screens from morning to night, traps you in Gear 1 or Gear 3. Bored or frantic. Rarely focused. You're not failing at focus. You're being kept out of it. Part 4. The golden window. From the moment you wake, your brain releases cortisol. Forget what wellness culture says. In the morning, cortisol is fuel. It makes hard thinking feel possible rather than punishing. That elevated window lasts roughly 2 to 3 hours. Then it fades. Which means the hours right after you open your eyes are the most valuable cognitive resource you'll get all day. You get exactly one of these per lifetime per day. So what do we spend it on? Notifications. Group chats. A 9 a.m. status meeting that could have been an email. We take the largest withdrawal our brain allows, and we spend it on the cheapest possible information. If your life were a bank account, this is walking to the counter every morning, withdrawing the maximum, and buying things you won't remember by lunch, and then discovering the account is empty in the exact moment something important shows up. Part 5. The first 90 minutes. Here's the intervention. Almost insultingly simple. Starting tomorrow, the most important thing you have to do goes into the first 90 minutes after you wake. Why 90 and not the full 2 or 3 hours? Because your attention gives you about 90 minutes of sustained concentration. Push past that and your brain doesn't ask politely, it forces a break. And understand what those 90 minutes actually are. They're not working harder. They're the one moment in your day when you can deliberately drop into Gear 2. Every other hour, the gear gets chosen for you. When you force through, a molecule called adenosine builds up around your neurons. It behaves like a toxin. Thinking gets thick. Every extra minute of heroic pushing is a minute of poisoning the very thing you're trying to use. And coffee? Coffee is a painkiller, not a cure. It blocks the signal, not the damage. Adenosine keeps accumulating. You've just convinced your brain not to mention it, while the overdraft grows quietly. The real solution costs nothing. Move. When you move, circulation increases, adenosine clears, and dopamine, your brain's reset button, kicks in. You don't need a gym. You need to stand up and walk. Work 90. Walk 10. That's the mechanism. Part 6. Don't negotiate, use a clock. But you won't stop. At minute 85, you'll feel like you're almost there. Just finish this one thing. That feeling is not information. Your brain manufactures the illusion of persistence at the exact moment persisting is most expensive. So don't negotiate. Set an alarm. When it goes off, you stand up. No, one more paragraph. No checking if you feel ready. You cannot beat your psychology with better psychology. You beat it with a mechanical rule you set in advance. Decide the rule when you're clear-headed. Obey it when you're not. Part 7. The morning belongs to you or the algorithm. Now the phone. There's a subtler trap here. Dopamine makes you want things, pursue things, care about outcomes. Without it, you wouldn't get out of bed. But the same molecule can hijack you. Every time a short video lands, your brain releases a small pulse. Dozens of them in the time it takes to drink a coffee. You believe you're relaxing. Physiologically, you're running your reward system at a frequency it was never built to handle. Your brain gets addicted while you feel emptier. The problem isn't the videos. It's the when. Those first 2 to 3 hours are the only hours genuinely yours. The rest gets claimed by meetings, requests, other people's urgencies. The moment you unlock that phone, you hand the pen to a recommendation engine. And that engine will tear your attention into pieces too small to reassemble. You look up and the window is gone. Not spent. Gone. So 2 physical rules. 1. The phone does not sleep in your bedroom. 2. No screen of any kind in the first stretch after you wake. A freshly woken brain is plastic. The first thing you feed it sets the rhythm of the entire day. Start with a feed, and you spend the next 14 hours in reactive mode, answering everyone else's needs, never advancing your own. What do you do instead? Identify the single most important thing today. Spend 90 minutes on only that. Door shut. Phone off. Network down. That's not extreme. That's the actual difference between people whose work compounds and people whose work evaporates. Not talent. Not background. They protected 90 minutes. That's the edge. The math. 365 days of 90 protected minutes is roughly 547 hours of genuine deep work a year. For most people, that's 10 times the deep work they'll do all year. Part 8. The real exhaustion. Wait. 10 times? So the average person only does about 50 real hours a year. Roughly. Possibly less. Because most of what fills a working day isn't work. It's performance. Performing for a manager. Performing for colleagues. And the most draining audience. Performing for yourself so you can believe you're the kind of person who works hard. Why is everyone so exhausted? Because performing costs more energy than working. Your brain runs a conflict detection system. When what you're doing and what you believe don't match, it burns fuel trying to reconcile the gap. You're editing the slide deck while a voice asks, what's the point of this? 2 processes, both charging you. The deck takes energy. The argument about the deck takes more. Real exhaustion feels like sore muscles. Fake exhaustion feels like something has been hollowed out. 3 ways out. Change the work. Change the frame. Find what it genuinely does for you. Or, if neither is available, tell yourself the truth. Right now, I am trading time for money. That isn't surrender. Admitting it shuts down the argument. And the argument was where your energy was going. When you stop manufacturing passion you don't feel, the fuel consumed by that internal conflict becomes available for something real. Part 9. What the 90 minutes are for. Those 90 minutes are not for email. Not for meetings. Not for tidying up loose ends. They're for the hardest, most thought-intensive thing on your plate. The proposal that decides something. Cracking the problem everyone avoids. Designing what doesn't exist yet. Whatever genuinely moves you forward. One thing. No switching. Everything else, replies, calls, admin, goes to the afternoon on purpose. Backup battery mode handles it fine. That's not compromise. That's correct allocation. Try it for 1 week. Not a month. Most people find the important work they complete in 5 days exceeds the previous month. Not because they worked longer. They worked shorter and stopped spending their best hours on their worst tasks. Part 10. Why almost nobody does this. So if it's this simple, why does almost nobody do it? Because doing it requires accepting something harder than any tactic in this video. A great deal of the effort you've already spent was wasted. Not misdirected. Not inefficient. Wasted. The late nights. The weekends. The pushing through. And the pride you took in how much it hurt. That's an unpleasant thing to sit with. But you can't skip it because the pride is load-bearing. As long as the suffering still feels like proof of virtue, you will defend it. And what you're defending is the exact behavior that's costing you. Your brain does not need to be squeezed harder. It needs to be released. Release its golden window. Release its natural rhythm. Release the startling efficiency it already had, before we buried it under a factory owner's arithmetic. Closing. We spend our lives racing time. Almost nobody notices the race was never about the length of the day. It was about the depth of the hour. The work that changes a life, it isn't assembled by staying up late. It gets carved, slowly, in the small window when the mind is genuinely awake. So go back to that number you thought of at the start. 2 hours. Maybe 3. The number you felt slightly ashamed of. That was never the problem. That was the budget. You just weren't told what it was, so you spent it on version 37 of a slide deck and blamed your character for the shortfall. So here's what I want in the comments, and be specific. What is the one thing you're going to put in your first 90 minutes tomorrow, and what are you going to have to stop doing to make room for it? The second half is the real question. Everyone knows what matters. Almost nobody names what they're giving up. I'll leave you with the line from the book I keep coming back to. All efficiency begins with being honest with yourself and surrendering to how you actually work. Not how you wish you worked. Not how the factory needed you to work. 90 minutes. Tomorrow morning. Before the algorithm gets its turn.